Welcome to the DULO show. On this episode, we talk with Nathan Kontny from Highrise, a CRM system.
Yes, Highrise is a spin-off from Basecamp.
You may be familiar with that.
Yep, he's the CEO there. He also had a very interesting career previous to becoming the CEO at Highrise. He was part of two Y Combinator classes.
Being part of the Barack Obama campaign for 2012.
Yeah, a very avid writer, very active on Medium. That's actually where we got to see him.
Yeah.
Got to see his work and reached out.
He's also a vlogger, vlogs a lot and regularly as well. We talk a lot about these things actually on the podcast. You should definitely give it a listen. We talk about Highrise. I think he came up with a great description for Highrise, which is a persistence engine.
Yeah, I think the next subtitle for the company came about on the podcast.
You heard it first here,
The
ladies
next
and
slogan.
gentlemen. Please enjoy this conversation with Nate.
Enjoy. Yes, well, I think we did open, but Nate, thanks again for taking the time. We've been following you for a while, and especially Signal versus Noise, the publication, we're huge fans of it. We follow every post from each and every one of you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
In Amsterdam, in Europe. And then, yeah, just to start off, maybe just give us some information about who you are and your career previous to Highrise. And there's also, and then after that, we can start from Highrise.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my background. I mean, we can go deep or keep it shallow. I used to be a chemical engineer in college. I got out of that. I didn't love chemical engineering. It was cool. I like solving puzzles, but I used to work at like a uranium processing plant, and I didn't want to work with uranium and dangerous chemicals anymore. So I got into computers. I worked at Accenture for a while, but I really wanted to start my own businesses, and so I kind of bounced around other people's businesses for a while. Then I was in Y Combinator back in 2000. We were the second class of Y Combinator ever back at the beginning of 2006. And I did Y Combinator. We did that for like 5 years. I did Y Combinator again in 2011. That project didn't work out as well the second time in Y Combinator. The first project still around. My partner acquired the company and turned it into something else, kind of a bigger project. And then I worked for the Obama campaign after the second Y Combinator project fell apart. I worked in the engineering team to get President Obama reelected. And then after that, I worked on Draft, which is the writing software that kind of took off and got a little popular. And then took on Highrise at the summer of 2014.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Wow, so many questions. First one, where does the interest in uranium come from?
Well, it wasn't so much my interest. I mean, I was kind of forced into the business. I mean, it was like an internship between my junior and senior years. So I didn't get to be too picky with the internship I was going to pick. But it was a cool place. I mean, it was I liked being exposed to it, but it was definitely a rough place. I mean, it was like, I'd have to wear an acid proof suit, one of these crazy suits that, acid can't penetrate in Kentucky. Which is a very hot place in July in the United States, and it's like I'd be sweating profusely just walking out the door with this thing on, and just you're surrounded. I'd have to carry gas masks around because if there's ever a leak, you gotta there's all these emergency procedures. So I was just kind of forced into it because I needed a job, but it just wasn't for me. I wanted a different atmosphere.
That's amazing. The interest from chemistry, does that come from a very young age, or you developed something professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I loved chemistry. Growing up, I played with chemistry sets constantly. My mom was in microbiology, and so she worked at a hospital. She would bring home all sorts of stuff I could play with, from like test tubes to petri dishes. I'd be growing all sorts of like weird bacteria and stuff in the basement. I mean, gross stuff. I mean, but it was what my mom did for a living, and she kind of exposed me to chemistry and more chemistry. My dad had a good friend who built microscopes, these like really crazy high-powered microscopes. So I got this neat even in grade school, I would bring these like high-powered microscopes to my science fair. So I just kind of got exposed to chemistry really early on. And then in high school, I did a lot of just physics, math, chemistry. Seemed like I just had an aptitude for it. And then honestly, in college, when I was looking at like all the degrees I could take, I mean, it was like a, I don't know a good way of putting it, but chemical engineering at the time when I got into college was one of the highest paying college majors you could pick. It was like the highest one in engineering. So it's like I knew I wanted to get into math and science, and I know I needed money. So it was like, I'll take the highest paying one. So that was it. It was like money, and I like science and math. I'll do chemical engineering.
That's an amazing combination. Is that what drove you to the interest into programming and development, and ultimately to Y Combinator?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't exposed to a ton of computer stuff when I was young. You know, like we didn't have a computer growing up until I got into high school. And even then it was just kind of like, I was only really using it for word processing. So my exposure to things like computer programming happened a little late. In college, I started seeing a little bit of it. I took like a programming class. I really liked it. It was the thing I remember my freshman year in college coming home. It was like freshman year, maybe sophomore year. But it was like, you know, I was like telling my father like the classes that got me the most excited, and it was like the programming classes. I mean, I could stay up all night working on programming problems. I didn't feel the same way about chemistry. I mean, I was good at it, but I didn't have like this love for it like I did software development. But already then, it felt like it was too late to change my major. This was kind of maybe a mistake I made. If I were to kind of go back, I probably would have done things differently. But when I was a sophomore in college, I was already feeling like I was already stuck on this path, and that I had to finish my chemical engineering degree, and that I couldn't maybe change to like a computer science or computer engineering degree. And that was probably a mistake. I mean, everything turned out okay in the end, but I really kind of like, I don't think I realized like that sunk cost fallacy, that it was like, it's okay that I invested and maybe wasted some time, but you know, I got to turn stuff around. You know, it's like that waste of time doesn't really mean anything right now. So yeah, like I stuck to chemistry, I stuck to chemical engineering, finished with a degree in chemical engineering. But it was in college where I really like, man, I got exposed to a little bit of computer programming and I loved it. During that internship at that uranium processing plant, I actually ended up breaking my ankle, and they wouldn't let me into the chemical plant anymore. They were worried my cast would get contaminated with uranium, and because you had to go through a Geiger counter on the way out the door every day to make sure you weren't covered in uranium. And if my cast was contaminated, you can't just like obviously take my cast off. So that was going to be a problem. So I had to like cover my cast, and they like only kept me in this like little engineering trailer, and they would only let me do work with a computer then. So I was stuck with working with a computer, and that's when all I could do all day was like program these Excel macros for my boss, and I just loved it. And I don't know, like that was like the tipping point where I was like, you know what? I'd rather be working with programming Excel macros than going into the rest of the plant right now. And it was just like this, like, I don't know, this enlightening period where I was just like, I really need to focus on software development. So everything after that, every decision I made was like, how can I get closer to computers? How can I get closer to doing and creating things with software? So that was the turning point.
You mentioned you had some previous projects before Sunrise. I know Draft is still running, but do you allocate some of your time, or do they just kind of live by themselves?
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, like Inkling, like was the first thing with Y Combinator that my partner just took that over. They may keep that running, but they've kind of merged into some other kind of projects they're doing. Draft still runs. I use it all day long. If I have to keep that running, if it stopped running, I drop everything and make sure it's running, because it's like it's the key to like all the other projects I do, all the writing at signal versus noise. It's all in Draft. Like if there's a project we're planning, Lynette and I, my COO at Highrise, and my wife, we just plan, you know, this new huge feature that we're planning in Highrise. It's all planned in Draft. And so it's like this critical piece of software in how I do things. So I keep Draft running. I keep it updated. I don't get to work on features on it. Like I don't have that free time to keep improving it. There's things I'd like to see improved on it. I'd like to see a better mobile experience, etc. I don't get to work on it like that. Everything is Highrise all the time. That being said, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it improved in the future. There's definitely things I want it to do, but yeah, I keep it running. And if, I plan on keeping it running forever and ever because it's a pretty valuable piece of software.
Are you working alone on Draft, or are you working collaborating?
Draft is just a solo project. Draft doesn't, I mean, it makes a little chunk of money. But it probably doesn't, it might make enough I could hire maybe like a freelancer part-time, probably not like a full-time freelancer. So yeah, I mean, I debate maybe bringing someone on and paying someone to kind of add features and do some stuff. But so right now it's just me. It's just me kind of keeping the thing going.
Can you tell us the interesting story of how you became CEO of Highrise?
Yeah, I mean, it's not it's just this it's a lot of dots to connect. I mean, it's not like a path that I can say like, this is what you've got to do to become the CEO of some random software company. I've committed over so many years, just like running businesses, running software projects, meeting people, trying to be useful to other people, like with Jason and David over at Basecamp. I mean, I've had a relationship with them. I mean, not like a really tight one, but something over the years, like from even the early days of Inkling, my first project with Combinator, I'd, meet Jason at a random conference or whatever and introduce myself and chat a little bit. Over the years, I'd just kind of stay in touch. I'd even let them know of like security problems I'd find in things like Basecamp. I'd email Jason like, oh, I found this thing you guys should probably look into. So, I mean, I wasn't trying to be annoying or a jerk. It was just like simply trying to be helpful to, keep these connections, this network of connections alive. Not really expecting anything. I never really wanted a job at Basecamp. I was happy working on my own things. And then Draft took off. I actually asked when Draft started, like becoming a thing I was starting to show people, I then just out of the blue emailed Jason and was like, do you want to, advise, talk about product? Do you want to kind of, meet up and look at this? I think it would be interesting to you because you love writing and, you love software. Like, I think you'd be interested in this project I'm doing. And he was totally game for it. That's something I could pull off much easier than most people because of all those years of meeting him and trying to help at Basecamp and keeping a relationship alive. I mean, so I think the lesson there is just like, try to form a lot of relationships out in the world. Don't expect stuff from them, but keep them alive in case they turn into something. People also would love to meet up and share advice. Like I've got a really great guy who works for me right now, Chris Gallo, on the support team. He pulled a similar move. Like when I was working on Draft, he was helping me do customer support for free. He'd be in the customer forums answering people's questions. I didn't ask him to do that. He didn't expect anything in return. A little while later, he finally asked me, if like, is there any job opportunities at Draft? And there weren't. I would have said no, but he asked me so coincidentally that Highrise was like about to become a thing that I was about to take over. I had a job at Highrise for him, and he was like one of the first people I considered. Like, I would love to have you. You do such a great job helping me with Draft. Of course, I'm going to bring you on a Highrise. It's just, I think a lot of people in Chris's situation, who aren't Chris, would have done something very different. They would have been like, they would have kept emailing me like, do you have a job? Do you have a job? Do you have a job? And like not helping me with anything. And just people ask for too much over and over and over again without really, providing any kind of that other side of the relationship. And so with Jason, yeah, and it was just like, well, it was like, I didn't really ask for much except, hey, do you want to, I think this would be interesting to you. But already by that time I had created this relationship with him. So then when the Highrise thing came about, I was like the top of his list of people he had in mind. That's it, like he just asked me kind of out of the blue. But I mean, obviously there's been years of just kind of building up to something like this. And so that's how the Highrise thing happened.
And for our audience, they might not be familiar with what Highrise is actually. So we know what it is, but can you say in a few words what the software is about?
Yeah, I mean, Highrise is in a nutshell just a very simple CRM. Customer relationship management. If you if you have leads of people that you're trying to sell something to, or close some kind of deal, maybe it's even in a nonprofit, or it's just kind of managing some kind of things with contacts, those, in most people's sense of this thing, they're leads, and you need to get them to close on something. Maybe it's some kind of deal, monetary. And really, you just need follow-ups, right? The simplest thing is you just need to keep remembering to follow up with this person, right? Keep a relationship alive. Email them every few months to see if there's something going on. Even if you're a freelance writer and you need to like email someone every few months to be like, oh, do you have any writing assignments? Do you have new work for me? That's what Highrise is. Just a really simple way of keeping track of those relationships and reminding you to follow up with people to close deals. Highrise started with Basecamp back in 2007. And they wanted to spin it off. And so, yeah, we spun it off in 2014.
How close are you? Because I've always wondered that. How close are you with the original Basecamp team when it comes to comparing with all the other little spin-off companies?
I mean, kind of close. I mean, Basecamp is still the parent company of Highrise. And so like there's definitely still a very close relationship with Basecamp. And when we took it over, though, I mean, we brought in a whole new team. There was no there was no kind of, we had some help from like the customer support. We've had some help from like ops, to kind of keep the servers running. But there's really been no like really guiding stuff from development or design. I mean, we brought in our own resources and really kind of owned the product. As for, and so that's it. I mean, that's, we still have this like relationship with like the ops team and the rest of Basecamp, and relationships with people like Know Your Company and Claire. I mean, she's a good friend of mine. And so, yeah, we have plenty of relationships there because they're still our parent company.
Are you guys also based in Chicago?
Yeah, that loosely. I mean, I'm here in Chicago. My wife's here in Chicago, but we have 7 people total working at Highrise. The 5 rest of us are all over the place, from Indiana to South Carolina to Tennessee, Minnesota. So everywhere. Someone's in Canada.
Amazing. You seem you're a very distributed company. And can you talk a little bit about culture and how you organize that and you basically built and established this culture at Highrise? I'm really curious about that. We're both very, very big enthusiasts and supporters of remote works and distributed companies as well, and would love to learn more insight about what's it like at Highrise.
Yeah, I mean, it comes really just from like what I like, I guess. I mean, my favorite is I like working at home. Like I don't love being in the office on top of one another. I really like focus. I've worked in places where you had to show up at an office every day and they frowned upon, working at home and working remotely. And I always felt like I wasn't getting my best stuff done there. I mean, people would be chewing gum in my ear and it was just like, I can't stand this. I remember even like working at the Obama campaign was a good example of this. We had to like work, really close to one another. And I had I still enjoy people and I enjoy meeting people, but man, a good friend of mine would sit across from me eating sardines and rice every single day. And it drove me up the wall. And it's that kind of stuff. It's like, I love being with people and I really cherish these moments that I get to spend time at like meetups. When we have our company meetups, it's like the best time of me getting to be at this company. I just love seeing everybody, but I love working like by myself and there's nobody there and it's quiet. And I don't have to smell sardines all day. Those are, like that culture is what I want to bring to other people. I want people I think they work their best when they're not interrupted and when they get to choose their environment. If they want to go work at a cafe because they love the noise or they want to work with the TV on or they like eating sardines all day, like all good. Like let's create an environment where everybody gets to experience that and get to manage it themselves versus me forcing upon them. We all got to show up to work today, guys. And we all got to work at a table like 2 feet away from each other. Like I hate that. So yeah, like when I got, to run, I've been running kind of remote organizations since I got to start my own businesses. And so Highrise was no different. It was, let's, interview people. I don't care where they are. They could be anywhere. And just hire the best. They don't have to be in Chicago. It does make things easier when people get to, it would be great if everybody was in Chicago, to tell you the truth. Like, we get to meet up a little bit more frequently, but I can't have both, right? It's like, I got to look for the best everywhere, and it allows me to, save money too. Like, I don't have to hire just people from San Francisco making like ungodly sums of money. People get to live in places where they get to stretch their dollar more than, say, living in Chicago, so they're happier. And so I don't know. I just think figuring out remote, it's got plenty of challenges, but figuring it out, I think, is the best kind of, I don't know. It's the best for both sides when you can figure it out. There's definitely challenges. It's not perfect either.
Can you mention some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, everything from like taxes are messed up. You've got to have like tax IDs in all these different states. So just administratively, it's a pain in the butt. And you might not go into that knowing that, and you can really mess up some tax stuff like we have. We've fixed it, but it's not, you got to think ahead about your taxes when doing this, and the extra burden you're going to bring to yourself when you do this. Some of the other challenges are simply like, we're in text all day, right? We're in Slack all day long, which is great, but it also doesn't, when you have a disagreement, it's really easy to not understand the other person, right? Even on video, you and we could have a disagreement about something, or I could be sarcastic about something, and you could probably pick it up because you can see me and tell what am I trying to be funny? Am I just joking? Am I angry? It's so much harder to tell that when you're in Slack, right? If someone's sarcastic, this happens constantly. Someone's being a little sarcastic, they're trying to be a little funny, and the other person doesn't pick up on this, right? They don't pick up on the joke, and they think you're serious, and they take it differently than you intended it. It happens all the time. You see it on Twitter, you see it, in comments on blog posts, you see it in Slack. And so that's a huge challenge. And so you have to recognize and try to manage kind of people's emotions a little differently than if you were all in the same room together. So that's been a big one. And just the challenge, like, when you get together, you can have some really high bandwidth conversations about features. Like my CTO, Michael Dwan, he was just here in Chicago. We got together at a whiteboard. We were able to draw up this new feature that we want, and it took like minutes to really convey like what we wanted, what the confusions were, and we like hashed it out really fast. Now, when we're back in the remote world and all we have is text and pictures to draw, it moves a little slower. And so it's nice to kind of break it up with like, well, let's get together in person again next week. I think there's a nice marriage between work remote, get together as often as you can. Sometimes you can't always afford it. That's cool. Make it work. But it's nice to get together as often as we can too in person.
So you guys don't have an office. Everyone's completely remote and working separately.
Yeah, we have a little office. Lynette and I have a tiny little office nearby. It's only like 100 square feet. And so it like fits two people comfortably, like me and her. We need it when because working from home isn't always ideal. We have a 3-year-old kid, and sometimes, she's off from school and she needs daycare here at home, and it's hard to work there. So like we go to an office occasionally. And we've had an employee come over to our office. So yeah, sometimes we fill the office with like 3 people, and it's a little much. But yeah, there's no real, sometimes we hang out at the Basecamp office, and we've used that for meetups and things, but it's not really our office. And so, yeah, there's no real official Highrise office, except for this tiny little office that Lynette and I have.
Nice. I've actually been following mostly your vlogs because I find the video super interesting, and that's one of the things that we started doing the way to spread the word about our company was to start vlogging the whole process of building the company. And one of your latest episodes was actually with your young daughter, and you were actually going with your wife to your office and saying you're escaping a family emergency or something like that at home.
Yeah, that's like a common occurrence. Like it's like crazy. That's like a yeah. That one is like a common theme on the vlog. Like, do you guys have kids at all?
No.
And the thing you don't realize, I swear nobody tells you this when you're like going into it, is like they are sick all the time. Like there's always these little emergencies, things that like, you know, they fall down and you're like, is this kind of like one of those things where I got to go to the ER with you kind of things, or it's going to just get fixed? Like the other day she got a splinter in her foot. It's like, we couldn't get it out. She's screaming. And it's like, you don't know, like, I don't know, is this an emergency or is this just something that's just going to take care of itself? I don't know, life becomes like one of these things where it's just like, you don't know if you're going to be in the emergency room tonight or not. You just have to kind of get comfortable, like thinking you might be. You know, I don't know. As a kid, I remember I had to go to the emergency room a lot. I was always getting into accidents. And yeah, sickness too. Like just the other day, she's got 102 fever. And it's just like, this keeps up very long. We're probably going to go to the emergency room. Yeah, there's a lot of that on the vlog. Just, yeah, I'm trying to like open up like the reality of managing a company, having a family. It's not all perfect over here. And I just kind of want to show other people that, because I think too many people think, I don't know, they look up to people running businesses and they think you've got it perfectly, you've got it all. And it's just like, nah, we're all struggling. We've all got life's issues, the same stuff.
Exactly. At what point did you decide to start documenting this process and your life, actually?
I mean, I've always, over the years, like I realized, I mean, to go really deep into it, it's like, I remember always having the problem of really spreading the stuff that I'm working on, right? It's like when I was doing Inkling, I didn't have any following, you know, like social networks were still kind of newish, but like I didn't have any friends on MySpace to tell, or Friendster, which was kind of popular, I think, still when I was starting my first business in like 2005. You know, so over the years, like it's always been challenging to kind of like tell people about this new stuff I would work on. And I remember like in 2011, when that project, the second time I was in Y Combinator, when it was kind of failing, I recognized it. It's like one of the reasons it was failing is like I still didn't have this like audience to tell about the stuff that we were working on. Like I didn't have the fan base to try to spread the new things that we were doing, and it sucked. And I didn't like where I was there. And so it was like I decided from then on to just start documenting better the stuff that I was going through. So after that, like after that startup started failing, I decided I'm gonna at least write one blog post a week. And I just started doing that. I created a blog, it was at Ninjas and Robots, and I just committed to one blog post a week. I don't care if I'm at the deadline and it's going to be a short one, cool. It's going to be one a week. And it forced me just in this cadence of sharing my life and interesting things I'd see. Maybe it was a picture of something outside I'd see, or it was an article I read, or just something from my past. And I forced myself to just do this. And gradually my Twitter audience started getting, a lot bigger than it used to be. And so I've just been doing that now over the years. So like when draft became a thing finally to tell people about, I had thousands of people to tell, and they spread it like crazy. And it was like, I've got to keep doing this. I've got to keep sharing what I'm doing, ideas I have or struggles I'm going through, and just keep building this audience. And so this vlog that I do on video, it's somewhat new. Like I only really committed to doing it this year. I was doing a little bit of it last year, but I decided like video is so hot. You guys know this, my kid, all she wants to do is watch YouTube videos. She doesn't want to watch TV. And like even Mark Zuckerberg's out there saying like Facebook's going to be like 80-90% video or something like that. And it's like, okay, I've got to get better at video and producing video. So this year was just like, well, that same cadence, that like showing up once a week, I'm going to start doing that with video. I just decided to do it daily because I feel like I need to get better at it faster, since I've been I have no skill at it when I started it. So yeah, that's just it. That's like the long story of me wanting to kind of get into video, build an audience with video now.
Are you still doing it daily, on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, I fell off the wagon a little bit. Like I was doing it at the start of 2017, I was like, I'm going to do it daily. And then I got bad about it. Like I got to this period where like there was like a company meetup happening and I was having trouble finding time to do the editing. And I didn't really know how to adjust. Like I tried a couple live videos, but I didn't feel like I did them well. Like I would be in a casino with my team and I'd be like, hey, I'm in a casino live. I can't do my normal vlog. I didn't like how those turned out. And so then I decided to not do daily videos when I couldn't get the time to edit. And then I regretted it because it was like I felt like people really enjoyed me showing up every single day. There was like an expectation. Like I'm a huge fan of like Casey Neistat. And a big reason I'm a fan of his over the last couple of years, more then than now, like is simply just because of his cadence. He would show up every day and show me something new, something entertaining, something just different. And there was just something I really appreciate about someone being there, right? It's like my day could be great or it could be shitty, but at least that guy's going to show up and like do something interesting that I can like look forward to. So like I want to be there for people in the same way. Like I don't want to copy Casey Neistat's style at all, but I like that inspiration of showing up daily and being there for people so that like, hey, you don't have to watch every day, but if you're got 10 minutes to spare and you need something, maybe I can motivate you or teach you or just entertain you with some weird jokes my kid is telling today. Yeah, so now I'm back to daily. I think it was like a month ago or so. I'm just like, if I'm not going to have time to edit, I'm going to do a YouTube live and I'll just kind of talk about something that's going on today, whether it's like a marketing challenge I'm going through or just something I'm thinking about. So yeah, I'm back to daily.
For someone who is just starting out with video and daily vlogging or weekly vlogging, doesn't matter. Do you have some tips for beginners?
Yeah, I mean, probably a lot. I mean, I could probably go on all day about this. It's like some of the tips are like, don't worry about equipment. Like once you get to a point where you're like really hating the quality of your videos, then worry about equipment. But like no one's gonna like watch your stuff more just because it's a little less grainy or the audio is just a little bit more perfect. They're gonna keep watching if it's interesting, like learn how to edit video, like read some books on storytelling. There's a really great storytelling book. I think it's like, is it Robert McKee? He's like a screenplay writer. So look at how movies are written and the stories are told in movies, right? I mean, movies they keep you watching. They're fast paced. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And one of the biggest piece of advice McKee would tell you from his book on like writing stories is like, you need to have changes. Like you need to show people either going from happy to sad or sad to happy. Like you got to show some sort of change that's like represents like some emotional state that you're going through. Maybe you start off like, or a struggle, like, oh, work sucks today. Oh no, I figured it out. You've got to show people want to see those changes, those emotional changes. So that's what you got to get better at. Don't worry about the quality of your camera. Worry about how like you're going to take your iPhone, your Android phone and show little clips of like just interesting changes in your life. And like people don't want to just watch like, too many people turn the camera on something that they think is like, should just be a photo, right? Like, hey, this is interesting. And no, this is a photo. This isn't doing anything. Like focus on like this in some kind of action, like it doing something, like a verb, right? Like the thing that you're watching has to be like acting on something else. And so it's like paying attention to all these elements. This comes from just like paying attention to how movies work, that kind of stuff. So story, read about how screenplays work. There's really another great book called it's like Making Video That Doesn't Suck or Video That Doesn't Suck. I don't know the name of the author right now, but it's like a very basic book on just basic video editing, keeping your shots short, making sure there's a hero in like all of your scenes. People want to see a hero. They want to see someone going through something, whether it's a little kid or an adult. Like they want to root for somebody. I don't know. Those are some of the big tips. Like those are some of the big ones. Yeah.
Take a look at that. To switch over from vlogs to blogs, you're very active on Medium. I have a two-part question. What's your favorite post that you've written, and what topics do you like to write about?
My favorite post that I've written was probably the one on, there's a lot, like I've been trying to write a lot of stuff. I still think the thing that stands out to me, that one of my most favorite ones is one on luck. I've already forgotten like what the title was, but it was on luck. I gotta like look up this. There was a, I won't look this up. It was on luck, and there was a famous actor who died like that week or like 2 weeks before I had written this. And I was like reading about his life. He had a autobiography that had come out about him, or maybe he had co-written it with somebody. And I just picked it up, and I was, I've seen this guy in so many movies, and I had, been reading his autobiography, and it just stood out to me like how lucky he seemed. He kept like bumping into like role after role. Like he, had such a hard life growing up, but then he'd like luck into meeting a friend of his from being younger who was now like a movie like casting agent. And then he'd like be hanging out like on set with like Marlon Brando, and like he wasn't like a very famous actor, but then all of a sudden he's like reading lines with Marlon Brando. Like now all of a sudden his like career is just blowing up. He just seemed like he was so lucky. But then like there was another psychologist I've been following over the years, a guy named Wiseman, and he writes a lot of stuff about luck. And he writes about one of his most the thesis around a lot of it is that lucky people seem happier, right? They're lucky. They're winning things. They seem fortunate, but it's actually the reverse. Like it's actually happier people are luckier. Optimistic people are luckier. And if you do all this research that the psychologist has done, and it's replicated over and over again, he finds that people who are more optimistic, their eyes are like more open to opportunities in the world. People who find themselves happier notice things more. If you give them a newspaper, and one of his experiments is he gave people a newspaper, and it was like, can you count the word no in the newspaper? I think it was the word no. It's like, so go through the newspaper, and I've like circled the word no, and you just go and you count it. And he also then asked these people, like, do you think you're like a happy person or optimistic person, or are you a pessimistic person? And the crazy thing about the study was the optimistic people, like, so the pessimistic people, they found the number, like they counted the word no in this newspaper like 50 times. The optimistic people, as they're going through the newspaper, they didn't count. They ended up finishing this experiment faster than all the pessimistic people. And the reason why is on like page 2, there was a huge advertisement that was in the newspaper that said, stop counting. The word no appears in the newspaper 50 times. Like the optimistic people like just saw that ad. They weren't lucky. They were just more observant. And so this actor, same thing, like he went through his career, and you notice like how calm he was all the time. You notice how happy he was all the time. You notice he wasn't a pessimistic person or a cynical person. Like he was just open to more experiences than most people are. I don't know. That's one of the things that I think is like so powerful in our lives. Like I know we get down on ourselves when a project isn't working out. I've had projects fail over and over and over again. I know there's things in Highrise I want so much better, and I get frustrated with it. But I know the more frustrated I get, the more like kind of closed off and angry I get, the worse I make my observational skills. And so it's like you need to power through this and recognize like I need to stay open-minded and be more observant. Really, you need to kind of like try to focus on being happier and more optimistic, and you're going to see more opportunities, and you're going to get luckier. So that's one of my favorite posts.
There was a second part to that, right?
Yeah, the second part is because you write a lot of on various different topics. Which ones are kind of your favorite to cover?
It's tough to say. I mean, I like all things in the realm of business and psychology. I mean, I like bringing in different disciplines. So it's like, I read tons of news, but I don't like to talk about the stuff that's making us so depressed these days and like the geopolitical climate. So like my Apple News feed right here is full of People magazine, Variety, which is like, a celebrity Hollywood magazine. It's all like pop culture, right? I know what's going on in the world of like the Kardashians, and I just there's something interesting to me about taking pop culture and drawing really interesting interesting lessons from it. You know, like I'm working on an article right now about all these. Stephen King is blowing up again, right? Stephen King, very famous author of horror movies. He's got like 5 movies and TV shows coming out like right now. Like, wait, no one does this, right? You know, like there's some very prolific writers, and the John Grishams, they have a lot of movies, but Stephen King has 5 things happening just like this month. How? Why? And that's, you know, like that's that pop culture thing. Like people love talking about TV, but I like to draw the lesson. Like, what can we learn from Stephen King and his success right now and his success over all these years, and bring them into the stuff that we're doing as a small business? That's the stuff that gets me really interested. Like drawing relationships between things that people don't really expect to learn from and try to find something. So it could be Stephen King, or it could be basket weaving. I don't care what, but I'm constantly looking for like the weird lessons. And so it could be psychology. It could be like how to market yourself better. So my mind is open to like all kinds of that, but that's the thread that kind of ties it all together. Like, what are the surprising lessons?
Right. And can you share a little bit what your writing process looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off with usually like a lot of reading. You know, like I probably read more than most people. I spend a lot more money than most people probably on books and magazines. I'm constantly, one of the more powerful things I do in my life is skimming. Like I took a speed reading class, and speed reading is like, a lot of people, you know, try to debunk it. And it's like, you know, like speed reading is mostly just good skimming. You know, it's like you're learning how to take a book and not read the whole thing, right? It's like, you know, reading a lot of the first sentence of each paragraph, right? I mean, each paragraph in a book or an article, it's usually full of fluff. It's usually that first sentence, which is usually the main point of a paragraph. So if you go ahead and you read a book and you just read the first sentence of each paragraph, you're probably going to get like the biggest ideas of the books. Doing smart stuff like that is how I like just plow through a ton of books, a ton of articles. I mean, that's the start of my writing process. I'm just constantly looking for interesting lessons of other people, interesting lessons of the Stephen Kings of this world. And then I usually just save those off. Like I've got like a little like save list in Apple News right now of like Stephen King, some, you know, Sophie Turner at Game of Thrones. I thought her interview with some reporter was really interesting. That kind of stuff. And then I've been trying to write about 2 articles a week. I try to publish one on the weekends. I try to publish one in the middle of the week. And I look for those interesting stories, and I just try to ask why. Like, why is Stephen King blowing up right now? Why is Stephen King so interesting? And then I'll just do a lot more research. You know, Stephen King has a book, his own autobiography. You know, I use Google Scholar a lot. It's like this unknown, a lot of people don't even realize it's out there, but like Google Scholar is a Google search engine that searches all the research papers that are out there. So you can drop a lot of interesting terms in there and find really interesting articles about psychology and science and marketing and business. It's all there. So like I'll look up things like, you know, like, why do creative people seem so prolific? You know, and you just uncover a ton of stuff. That's my writing process. It's like just reading a lot, paying attention, and trying to combine it with other things that I find out there. That's usually kind of where I start. And then I just try to kind of merge those two. I try to tell a lot of stories. I try to show, like, keep people surprised. Sometimes I won't reveal who the story is about until the end, just because it's like, it's just one little more piece of surprise. If I could pull it off, people kind of dig that. So it's like, why not? I think a lot of people write and they spoil everything in the first paragraph, and it drives me nuts. If you're going to write an article, why write an article if you're going to spoil everything in the first paragraph? Write a tweet. You know, like if your article is just as interesting as like 1 sentence or 2 sentences, don't write an article. You know, just tweet it out. But if you want to like craft something that's really interesting and keeps people going, you got to learn how to weave a story and keep people interested paragraph after paragraph after paragraph.
Something very specific caught my attention is the copy of your signature on Medium posts. And I was, because usually people, if you like this post, please share it. But you say you don't encourage people. You tell them you should follow me on Twitter. And it's bold with underline, and then you should sign up for Highrise. Is that something that's been A/B tested?
Yeah. Yes. One of the people who've done this the best, there's a great designer, Dustin Curtis, and he really opened a lot of people's minds up to, he A/B tested a footer in his blog posts, and he tested all sorts of different like PSs or last lines in his blog posts. And the one the one that did the best was, "You should follow me on Twitter here." And that took off like crazy. You see a lot of people doing that now. "You should follow me on Twitter here." I've tried to bring my own twist into it. I haven't lately done any like split testing on like what the best one is, but like I've kind of just evolved it, right? I mean, it's like I use the word please. I expand it to be like, well, can you spread it, but then also sign up for Highrise. So I try to do it a little bit differently, but over the years, I've tested different versions, and being a little bit direct, like "you should follow people here," and being very clear where to do it. That clear call to action has done better than being like wishy-washy. I do it in my videos, right? At the end of every video, I'm like, "Please like this thing, please subscribe." If you don't do it, I mean, I've definitely tried videos where I don't do it and videos where I do it. The videos where I do it, I get more likes, I get more people spreading the thing. It works. You got to like, people won't know that you need this unless you ask them for it, right? I read a lot of stuff, and like, even if it's interesting, I don't bother liking it. It's just that one extra click. I don't want to find the heart. But if that author was like, "Please heart this, I'm really trying to spread my, get a new audience and spread my stuff." Oh, okay. Now that I know it means something to you, I will definitely do it.
Nice. Yeah, it's something that we've been thinking about, because being on so many platforms, there's always a better way to write copy. So that really caught my attention. And going back to Sunrise, what's the
Highrise?
Highrise, yeah.
Going back, it used to be called Sunrise. Yeah. It used to be called Sunrise.
I didn't know that, but that was a flip. So what's your current focus as a CEO?
Marketing. I mean, Highrise is a challenge. Like it's a wildly profitable business that we run very lean, just with 7 people. But I still think the challenge is mostly marketing. Like we spun off a Basecamp, and we lost all that marketing push from Basecamp. Like 37 Signals wanted to focus on Basecamp. They didn't want to focus on Highrise. That's an awful lot to replace, right? Jason, David, and Basecamp are all 3 huge brands, right? You got 2 celebrities, and everybody seems to use Basecamp. And then you've got Highrise and a team of people. Like I'm not the celebrity that David and Jason is, right? I'm gonna come in here, and you might know me from a couple tiny projects, but that's the challenge, marketing. And so my focus right now is like just getting the word out, doing more of these podcasts and writing more articles, doing more vlog posts, and just learning how to spread my own, messages better. That's my focus.
What kind of company or professional is Highrise best suited for?
Someone who's looking. So we did a bunch of these jobs to be done interviews. Have you heard of it? It's becoming a very popular process these days. Jobs to be done. Clayton Christensen, he's been the very big proponent of these. If you read books like Innovator Solution and Competing Against Luck, you'll learn all about like studying the problem people have that they're hiring you to solve. So it's not about like, oh, Highrise is perfect for people between 35 and 40 years old who, are, directors of business development at small companies of 100 people. Like that's not what we found interviewing people is like, that's not it. Like demographics don't really mean much for us, and probably don't actually mean much for a lot of people who are too focused on demographics. Our core user is someone who needs like the fastest thing possible today. And they just need something simple. They don't need a lot of like difficult reports and a lot of integrations. They just need something that like helps them start selling today. A lot of people were like, come to us who were using Excel And all of a sudden they realize they like went to a trade show and now they have 400 leads from a trade show they need to follow up with. They don't need something super complex. Excel used to work for them, but with 400 rows now that they have to newly add to an Excel spreadsheet, all of a sudden Excel doesn't work for them anymore. That worked when there was 20, but when it got to 400, it doesn't. But they don't need to jump from Excel to Salesforce, or they don't need to jump from Excel to, now I need a social media management platform. Like, no, they just need to manage 400 reminders to follow up with these people. So it's just someone who's like, we've got people from, big giant businesses, Fortune 500 businesses, to like little consultants who are just selling beauty products on the side as like a side hustle. So all range of businesses, but the thing that connects them all is they just need something like today. They don't want to learn a lot of stuff. They just need something to kind of manage a really simple workflow to close deals.
In one of your latest videos, you mentioned actually a challenge that you're having, that people from the same organization that's, let's say, have 1,000 people, they're using Highrise, but they have no idea that they're using it between each other. How are you working to solve this, and what's your way of like bridging this gap and educating these kind of big organizations?
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for that yet. Like it's simply just paying attention. Like there's organizations that I keep seeing, like real estate companies are a great example. Like a real estate company, like I'll make one up. Let's call it the Kontny real estate company. They're usually like these brands that are like national or even global, but then the real estate agents themselves open up little tiny satellite offices, right? And like they all they're on their own, but they have like this brand that like they work with the parent company. They might even get an email address. They might even get like certain IT type things. But then still they're on their own. And so we see a lot of these consultants or real estate agents on their own trying to figure out how to do sales, and they'll sign up for Highrise with their company's name. And so like we have thousands of accounts of certain real estate companies, thousands of accounts of certain like beauty products. When I see those, I've been starting to email people in the corporate company, the parent company, and a lot of it is just cold email. Some of it is like intros, like someone followed me from this beauty company and we reached out to her. So like we kind of know her a little bit, and we just kind of reached out to be like, hey, we notice a lot of people that market and sell for you in your brand use Highrise, but they don't realize all of the other people are doing it. And you probably are we could offer this to you probably like at a discount. And two, we could offer probably training that makes a lot of sense for your just core business. Like, you sell beauty products, so why don't we make some training videos and articles that are specific about managing a workflow of selling beauty products. It's still new. I haven't succeeded with this yet. Like we've got like, one person, a beauty product vendor was interested in spreading the word more about Highrise. I'm trying to talk to someone who sells fitness products and like, nutritional supplements. That hasn't really turned into anything. We've just been kind of exchanging emails. I don't know what it's going to be, right? Like it's going to be a bunch of cold emails, me acting as just kind of an outbound salesperson, trying to, follow up with people and seeing if I can offer something of value to them that they might want to do a deal.
And you're using Highrise to keep track of all these connections, I guess?
Of course. Yeah, like a really good example was this guy I followed up with the other day at this nutritional supplement place. I had emailed someone at LinkedIn. I know he worked at this company. He went to my school, my university. So I emailed him out of the blue. I got his email address from his website. And I was just like, hey, man, like I noticed a lot of people from your company, they use Highrise. Would you be interested in talking? And then I just set up a follow-up reminder to myself using Highrise, like follow up in 1 week. I'm going to let this guy, see if he replies in 1 week. The follow-up, the reminder occurred and he hadn't followed up. Now, you could just keep bugging that guy, but I don't love bugging people. That's not how I usually like to kind of use reminders. So for me, I just found someone else to email. Like I immediately was like, oh, this guy might not be interested. So there's plenty of people that work at this company. So like I use that reminder in Highrise just to stay like, keep at it, right? I mean, it's all about persistence, and Highrise's follow-ups is really just like a persistence engine, like if something's not going to remind you, you probably are going to forget it. You're going to write it in your notebook, and then you're not going to get to it. But like with Highrise, it's like staring me in the face. Like it's overdue. I get an SMS alert. Like it's just nudging me. Like, Nate, follow up, follow up, follow up. And I did, and I landed a meeting. Right? I mean, so it took more than one email. It took a reminder. It took like a follow up, but I got a meeting. And a lot of people, they like just do the one thing and then they like die. They like let it go. But to tell you the truth, it takes multiple attempts usually to close a deal. It's not one email. It's probably 8 emails you're going to have to fire away trying to get people's attention. So that's, yeah, I use Highrise as just to help me persist.
What's the vision for the company in the near future?
I still think we need to, I mean, like I said, like we need to get the awareness out. I mean, it's like, you know, like we need to get better spreading the word about, you know, what we're good at. I think we still kind of get lobbed into like all these other products that are all doing like fancy reports and pipeline management and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I can see why you would compare us amongst other CRMs, but I think we're really different. I mean, I think we're the thing that like, you don't need a CRM. You just need something better than Excel. You just need something a little bit better than your inbox. You know, like an inbox works when you're by yourself, but then when you two guys are probably trying to answer emails and figure out like, well, wait a minute, did you follow up with this person? Like all of a sudden an inbox doesn't like cut it anymore. So like, we just like need to get the word out amongst people in those situations better. I don't quite know. We've got all sorts of ideas. We've got a lot of like, you know, a lot of attempts out there. I don't have it nailed yet, but I think we've got to get better at that. We've got to get better at marketing ourselves. That's it. Like that's my core focus, and that's what we've got to do and get better at.
And where's the best place where people can find out more about Highrise and about yourself as well?
I mean, I'm still pretty active on Twitter. If I'm doing something, it's going to be on Twitter. So just Nate Kontny at Twitter, or my YouTube channel is, you know, that's a daily, you're going to find out stuff I'm working on there. That's just youtube.com/Nathan Kontny.
Okay, great. And Highrise is highrise.com?
And
Highrise.com.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to put all the handles in a post.
Crazy these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many even platforms. A little restaurant I go to has a Pinterest account, a Facebook account, an Instagram account, a Twitter account. It's like, no way you guys need all 4 of these channels. But I guess we do.
Probably came with a template, like
yeah,
the business card template.
It probably did.
It used to be nice when you had only one business card.
Yeah, just a phone number.
Then it was a website.
Then the email came, then the website.
Great.
Thanks, I really enjoyed it. Thanks again for the time.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with me. Thanks for having me on.
Really appreciate it. We're going to air this in a couple of weeks. We're going to send you all the assets from that.
Yeah, let me know.
Really, we're going to keep following you. You have really interesting storytelling approach. I think we learned a lot of things. I think people who are interested in documenting themselves have a lot of tips from that show.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Awesome.
Thanks
guys.